Hello friends, welcome to YR Today. On this channel, we regularly share the latest news and spoilers from American TV shows. So, let's get into today's important update. YNR The Rinse February 10th, Kane never sees Phyllis coming until it's too late. In the February 10th episode of The Young and the Restless, Kane believed he was making the hardest sacrifice of his life to protect his family. He thought the danger was external, Victor's pressure, the ticking clock, the deal he didn't want to make. What Kane never accounted for was the threat standing closest to him. While he focused on saving Lily and the kids, Phyllis waited for the precise moment when he was emotionally spent and completely exposed. What happened? Phyllis put Kane down. After exhausting every alternative, Kane, Billy Flynn, finally folded. He contacted his attorney, ordered the AI dismantled, and prepared to hand Newman Enterprises back to Victor, Eric Braden. Each step was fueled by fear that Lily, Crystal Khalil, and the kids weren't safe and that any hesitation could cost them everything. Kane wasn't strategizing anymore. He was reacting. Phyllis, Michelle Stafford, recognized it instantly. Instead of pushing back, she shifted gears, reframing the loss as temporary and even noble. She talked about loyalty, reminded Kane of what they'd built together, and praised his willingness to put family first. Kane believed he was finally being understood. Then she kissed him, not impulsively, but deliberately. Within moments, Phyllis pulled out a chloroform-soaked cloth and held it over Kane's face until he collapsed. What Kane thought was reconciliation was actually the end of his control. Why it matters, Phyllis is Kane's weak point. Kane didn't lose because Victor outplayed him. He lost because he trusted the one person who has never survived by playing fair. Kane believed Phyllis was capable of accepting defeat if it meant protecting someone she cared about. That belief gave her the opening she needed. Phyllis has always thrived in chaos, and Kane's moral conflict handed her leverage on a silver platter. The moment he showed he was willing to surrender everything, she understood that he could be stopped, not with force, but with timing. This wasn't panic. It was execution. The fallout: Kane lost everything. Once Kane went down, the outcome was sealed. With Billy, Jason Thompson, acting as a distraction, Phyllis moved quickly to secure control before Kane could reverse course. By the time he regained consciousness, the decision he believed he had made no longer mattered. YNR The Rinse February 10th, Kane never sees Phyllis coming until it's too late. Genoa City has seen its fair share of blindsides, betrayals, and brilliant reversals of fortune, but nothing could have prepared Kane Ashby for the storm that was quietly gathering right under his nose. For weeks he believed he was the one orchestrating the moves, the one setting the pace, the one staying 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He believed that Phyllis Summers was scrambling, reacting, and desperately trying to regain control. What he didn't realize was that Phyllis wasn't scrambling at all. She was studying him. And on February 10th, the game flips in a way that leaves Kane stunned, exposed, and dangerously vulnerable. Kane has been playing a long game ever since he returned to prominence, carefully rebuilding influence and aligning himself where it counts. He has leaned into charm when necessary and applied pressure when advantageous. To Kane, power is about perception. If people believe you're untouchable, you become untouchable. But Phyllis has never been someone who accepts perception at face value. She digs. She questions. She watches for tells. And what she saw in Kane wasn't confidence. It was overconfidence. The kind that leads to fatal mistakes. Phyllis has been underestimated her entire life. Dismissed as impulsive. Written off as emotional. Painted as reckless. Kane made the same error, assuming that her recent setbacks had left her desperate and off balance. He assumed wrong. Behind the scenes, Phyllis was connecting dots that others overlooked. Financial inconsistencies. Quiet conversations that ended when she entered a room. Subtle shifts in loyalty among key players. She noticed patterns that didn't add up. And she followed them. What she uncovered sent a chill through her but also ignited something familiar and fierce. Kane had been maneuvering assets and information in a way that positioned him to gain leverage over multiple families in Genoa City. He wasn't just trying to win a business battle. He was setting up a domino effect that could topple alliances and leave him standing at the center of the chaos. Phyllis recognized the strategy because it was something she might have done herself in another life. But this time, she wasn't the architect of disruption. She was the obstacle. Instead of confronting Kane immediately, Phyllis did something unexpected. She stayed quiet. She played along. She even let him believe he had the upper hand in a few public exchanges. Kane interpreted her restraint as weakness. He mistook her silence for surrender. Meanwhile, Phyllis was building her case. She gathered proof. She looped in just enough allies to protect herself but not enough to tip Kane off. Every move was deliberate. Every conversation carefully calibrated. The tension between them simmered beneath polite smiles and pointed comments. Observers could sense something brewing, but no one knew how explosive it would become. On February 10th, the calm facade shatters. It starts with what appears to be a routine business meeting. Kane arrives confident, prepared to finalize a maneuver he believes will secure his advantage. He expects minimal resistance. What he gets instead is a calculated ambush. Phyllis presents documentation that exposes his strategic manipulation in meticulous detail. Not speculation. Not accusation. Proof. The room shifts instantly. Allies who once nodded along with Kane's plans begin to look at him differently. Questions arise. Doubt creeps in. Kane attempts to pivot, to explain, to reframe the narrative. But Phyllis anticipated every defense. She counters calmly, dismantling his arguments piece by piece. The shock on Kane's face is unmistakable. For the first time since his return, he looks rattled. Not because he's been accused, but because he's been outplayed. And he never saw it coming. What makes the moment even more powerful is Phyllis's composure. There's no gloating. No dramatic outburst. Just controlled, precise execution. She doesn't need theatrics. The truth does the work for her. Kane's carefully crafted image of control begins to crack under scrutiny. Those who once feared crossing him now reconsider their positions. In Genoa City, perception is currency. And in a single afternoon, Kane's balance plummets. But the fallout extends beyond business. Personal relationships strain under the weight of revelation. People who trusted Kane question what else he may have concealed. Was this manipulation limited to corporate maneuvering, or did it bleed into personal loyalties as well? The ripple effect is immediate. Conversations spark across town. Lines are redrawn. And Kane finds himself isolated in a way he hasn't experienced in years. Still, underestimating Kane would be just as dangerous as underestimating Phyllis. The look in his eyes as the meeting concludes isn't defeat. It's recalculation. He may have lost this round, but he's already assessing the next move. The problem is that Phyllis knows that look. She knows the fire of someone unwilling to accept humiliation. By exposing him publicly, she didn't just damage his strategy. She challenged his pride. And a wounded ego in Genoa City often leads to reckless retaliation. The larger question looming over February 10th isn't whether Kane can recover. It's how far he's willing to go to regain control. Will he attempt to discredit Phyllis? Will he double down on risky alliances? Or will he retreat temporarily, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back? Phyllis understands that victory in this town is rarely permanent. Today's triumph can become tomorrow's vulnerability. That's why she remains vigilant even as whispers of admiration circulate. She didn't just defend herself. She sent a message. She is not to be underestimated. The dynamic between Kane and Phyllis has shifted irrevocably. What once felt like subtle rivalry is now open warfare. And Genoa City thrives on such battles. Spectators choose sides. Opportunists look for advantage. Old grudges resurface in the chaos. In many ways, Phyllis's move doesn't just alter Kane's trajectory. It destabilizes the delicate balance of power across multiple circles. The most intriguing part of this confrontation is how personal it feels despite its corporate setting. Kane and Phyllis share more similarities than either would admit. Both are survivors. Both have reinvented themselves repeatedly. Both believe they deserve a seat at the table. That mirror effect is what makes their clash so combustible. Each sees in the other a reflection of ambition unchecked. And neither is comfortable with losing to someone so similar. As night falls on February 10th, Genoa City buzzes with speculation. Some applaud Phyllis's brilliance. Others worry she may have provoked something she can't contain. Kane, meanwhile, retreats behind closed doors, analyzing every detail of what went wrong. He replays conversations, searching for the moment she got ahead of him. The realization that she was quietly dismantling his plan while he smiled across from her stings deeply. The psychological edge now belongs to Phyllis. But in this town, edges can dull quickly. If Kane adapts, if he channels his humiliation into strategic refinement, the next encounter could be even more explosive. The rinse on February 10th proves one thing beyond doubt: in Genoa City, the most dangerous opponent isn't the loudest or the flashiest. It's the one who waits. The one who listens. The one who strikes only when the outcome is certain. Kane believed he was untouchable. Phyllis reminded him that no one is. And by the time he realized the trap had been set, it was already too late. The aftermath of that meeting doesn't settle into silence. It detonates quietly across Genoa City, one private conversation at a time. By the end of the day, what happened in that boardroom is no longer contained to those four walls. It becomes the only topic anyone wants to dissect. And for Kane, the humiliation isn't just professional. It's deeply personal. Because what Phyllis exposed wasn't merely a risky strategy. It was intent. It was ambition wrapped in secrecy. It was proof that Kane was willing to gamble with other people's security to cement his own power. That kind of revelation doesn't fade overnight. It lingers. It reshapes trust. It makes even longtime allies take a step back. Kane can feel the shift almost immediately. Calls that would normally be returned within minutes go unanswered. Invitations quietly disappear. People who once sought his approval now watch him carefully, as if trying to measure how dangerous he might become when cornered. And that is what makes this so volatile. Kane has never handled being cornered well. He thrives in control. He flourishes when he dictates the rhythm. When that control slips, his instincts sharpen in unpredictable ways. Meanwhile, Phyllis doesn't retreat into celebration. She knows better. She understands that exposing someone like Kane doesn't eliminate him. It provokes him. And if there's one thing Phyllis respects, it's a worthy opponent. She anticipated his retaliation before she ever stood up in that meeting. That's why she didn't just prepare evidence. She prepared insulation. She's already secured backup alliances. She's already looped in key players who now have a vested interest in keeping her protected. What Kane doesn't yet realize is that this wasn't a single strike. It was phase one. The brilliance of Phyllis's move isn't just that she dismantled his plan. It's that she forced him into reaction mode. And reaction mode is where mistakes happen. For days, Kane had been playing chess. On February 10th, Phyllis flipped the board and rewrote the rules. The tension between them escalates when they inevitably cross paths again. There's no audience this time. No boardroom. Just a charged exchange thick with unspoken threats. Kane tries to reclaim composure, suggesting she misinterpreted his strategy. Phyllis doesn't bite. She simply reminds him that transparency would have prevented all of this. The implication is clear. He didn't miscalculate. He got caught. That distinction matters. Kane's jaw tightens, but he doesn't explode. Instead, something colder settles in his expression. A promise. Not of surrender. Of patience. And patience, when wielded by someone like Kane, can be far more dangerous than rage. Around town, speculation turns strategic. Some wonder if Victor will step in to capitalize on Kane's weakened standing. Others question whether Jill might quietly recalibrate her loyalties. Genoa City isn't just a place of drama. It's a battlefield of influence. When one power player stumbles, others advance. Phyllis knows this. That's why she isn't just watching Kane. She's watching everyone. The ripple effect intensifies when unexpected support comes her way. Individuals who previously kept their distance now see her as a stabilizing force. It's ironic. For years, Phyllis was labeled volatile. Now she's being praised for calculated precision. Reinvention has always been her secret weapon. And this latest chapter reinforces that she has evolved. She doesn't need chaos to win anymore. She uses clarity. But clarity can be blinding. Kane begins his quiet counteroffensive by digging into Phyllis's own vulnerabilities. He searches for weak points, past missteps, unresolved tensions. He convinces himself there must be something she overlooked. Something he can exploit. The problem is that Phyllis anticipated that, too. She didn't just attack his strategy. She cleaned up her own loose ends first. For once, she isn't leaving emotional blind spots exposed. That realization frustrates Kane more than the public embarrassment. He underestimated her growth. He assumed she would rely on impulse. Instead, she relied on discipline. The emotional stakes climb when whispers surface that Kane's maneuvering may have affected more than corporate positioning. There are hints that personal relationships were subtly manipulated to serve his broader agenda. If that thread unravels, the consequences could multiply. Trust once broken rarely repairs cleanly in Genoa City. And if people begin questioning whether Kane used them as pawns, his isolation will deepen. Phyllis doesn't have to push further. The doubt does the work for her. Yet there's an undercurrent of tension even she can't ignore. Victory carries its own risks. By publicly exposing Kane, she made herself a target not just of his resentment but of anyone who benefited from his quiet strategy. Power shifts create enemies in unexpected places. As night falls again, both of them sit separately, staring at the same invisible chessboard. Kane reviews where he misjudged timing. Phyllis reviews where retaliation might come from. Neither is sleeping easily. The rinse on February 10th wasn't just about one move. It was about momentum. And momentum in Genoa City is everything. What makes this storyline so compelling is that it doesn't offer a clean hero or villain. Kane believed he was building something strategic. Phyllis believed she was preventing exploitation. Both operated from ambition. Both justified their actions internally. The difference is execution. On this day, Phyllis executed flawlessly. But long games rarely end with a single checkmate. The larger question remains hanging in the air like static before a storm. Has Kane learned from this loss, or has he simply grown more determined? Because if there's one certainty in Genoa City, it's that pride never stays wounded for long. It regenerates. It recalculates. It retaliates. And somewhere beneath the polished calm Phyllis projects, she knows the war isn't over. She won the battle because Kane never saw her coming. The next time, he will.